Want to know the latest in soccer? Then listen to the Golden State Media Concepts Soccer Podcast. From MLS, the World Cup, and the Premier League, we've got you covered. The latest updates, the hottest matches, and news on the league's top players. It's the Golden State Media Concepts Soccer Podcast.
David Beckham scores a goal to take England all the way to the World Cup finals.
Listen now.
Hey there, and a big welcome into the GSMC Soccer Podcast. I'm your host, Lukas Moore, and you're listening to the GSMC Soccer Podcast on the GSMC Podcast Network, your home for about every single podcast you can think of. Yes, about everything you can think of can be found on the GSMC Podcast Network. Give us a follow on social media, GSMC_soccer. Search GSMC for all the other podcasts, and then on Facebook as well. GSMC Soccer on Facebook. Give it a like, give us a rate, give us a subscribe, give us a review. All those things would be very appreciated from you. And we hope to hear some feedback from you guys soon. But we want to get started on today's show of Friday. That means we have some matches to preview in the Premier League. We have some matches to preview in La Liga. And by some matches, I mean the two biggest matches, Man City, Crystal Palace, pretty big match in the Premier League. We won't touch on that. We will touch on Liverpool versus Manchester United. This is going to be a weekly thing. Who can take down Liverpool? Will it be the boys from Manchester United? We'll dive into that a little bit later in the show. We'll also dive into Real Madrid, Sevilla, which according to 538 is the most important match this weekend of any league in the world in terms of quality, in terms of importance. Sevilla, fourth in La Liga right now, battling Real Madrid, who's tied at the top of the table with FC Barcelona. But where I wanted to get started on today's show was a little bit of transfer news and then a discussion about the state of international club soccer. And I think it's really important that we have this discussion because it is an important discussion. So we start with Neymar wanting a new deal from Paris Saint-Germain and saying that it's going to depend on the Champions League performance. Neymar wants to win Champions Leagues. He wants to compete in them, and PSG wants the same thing. So if those two align throughout the round of 16, quarterfinal, semifinal, they don't necessarily have to win, but be competitive, look sharp, then Neymar is going to be headed back to PSG, which means he'll stay away from the Premier League, away from La Liga, which I don't think anybody in those two leagues wants to see Neymar week in, week out. He's a very special player, the very special Brazilian. And I just think it makes a whole lot of sense for both of them. I think Neymar can be in a big market where he can dominate, beloved by the fans there. PSG can constantly buy players. And if he's happy there and he wants to keep living there, then that's exactly the place he should be. And he's going to win league titles at the bare minimum. And if they can show that to be competitive in the Champions League, then it's well worth it for Neymar and it's well worth it for PSG. That transfer news sparks a little bit of debate, a little bit of intrigue from a topic that's been discussed throughout the wider parts of international club soccer. It's an interesting discussion, for sure. A highly interesting discussion. And it is this getting too wide? Is the gap widening at the top of these leagues far too much? And when you think about it at first, you think, well, hasn't international soccer every year, in terms of at the club level, obviously La Liga, Premier League, all those, hasn't it every single year been unbalanced? Haven't these top teams been the top teams forever? And the answer to that is, yeah, actually. You know, it's pretty clear and evident that it's been that way for a long time. But it's getting worse. It's getting worse like it's never had. So Bayern Munich always won the Bundesliga, right? Did they win it every single year? No, but every other year, you know, maybe some back-to-back and then a year break, maybe 2 years off, then a back-to-back. But they were winning 4 or 5 a decade at least, right? 4 or 5 a decade. They had 20 odd championships heading into they had 27 championships 7 years ago, right? Throughout the entire history of the Bundesliga. They've had won 7 straight since. They're over 30 now. It's incredible what Bayern Munich has been able to do in this millennia, and specifically this decade in the Bundesliga, a league that has been traditionally competitive. And the Germans don't really know what to do because it's going to keep going. Bayern's too talented. They have too much money. They have too much power. Schalke gets a good player. Bought. Dortmund gets a good player. Bought. Leipzig gets a good player. Bought. If they want you to play for Bayern Munich, they buy you. And there's no structures in these leagues to prevent this from happening. There are structures in every other sport league in the world to prevent this exact thing from happening. So imagine how uninteresting the NBA would be if you could buy players and pay them any contract you want, and the players, if they want to go, they're going to go, and the other organization is just going to take the big payday. The Lakers would be the best team in the NBA every year. They'd be first or second every year. Now, they have usually been one of the best teams in the NBA. I know they've had a bad stretch, but throughout the history, they have usually been competitive and usually been at the top because they have the advantage of the money, of the market, right? Of the fame, of the popularity. Those are real advantages for the Los Angeles Lakers. But there are structures within the league that keep those advantages from running out of control to where you're going to have a Toronto Raptors win the NBA championship. And in soccer, it used to be you're going to have, in the Bundesliga, a Dortmund win the championship. In La Liga, Atletico win a few more titles. Maybe Sevilla sneak up there, right? In Italy, AC Milan, where are they? Inter Milan, where are they? They're usually up there competitive. They are not. It's Juventus every single year. I mean, it's gotten so bad in a couple of these leagues to where the top team or top 2 teams are completely running away with it every year. And it's because they have so much money, they can buy all the players. And these players want international fame more. They're more star-centric. They know they need to go to the best clubs to have success. They're way more okay with moving their family because the money is so large and the potential of the money is so large. Because in the past, you could stay around a little bit longer. It might be best for your career even to build a life, build a fan base in one city. That's not the case anymore. It's the player empowerment era that started in the NBA. Really, it's been happening in soccer for a long time. But when the NBA kickstarted it and then money started skyrocketing across sports, then it was everywhere. And in soccer specifically. But there's no way to put a salary cap on these teams because each of these teams play technically in a different league. And the leagues don't want to handicap their best team because their best team is the only way that they get the international exposure, the reputation from winning the Champions League. Because the Bundesliga can say, look how many Champions League semifinal appearances we have. But it's really just how many semifinal appearances does FC Bayern and occasionally Borussia Dortmund have? The Premier League is the only bastion of competitiveness left, and it's really kind of not. Look at Liverpool, they're 16 points clear. That's not necessarily because of money, it's because they built a good team, but one of these leagues being hyper-competitive is not good for the sport, right? And the Premier League being hyper-competitive is a stretch, right? Because it is very much a top-of-the-league, right? Top-of-the-table league. You've Liverpool, 61. I will put Liverpool in the class of Manchester City. I don't think Liverpool is leaps and bounds better than Manchester City. I think they're a better team. They play together a little more efficiently. But if Man City gets on a roll and Man City's playing its best, it can certainly beat Liverpool playing their best. And that's why I think they're on the same level. I just think Liverpool is just a machine. They're showing up every week. They're in a rhythm. They're determined. They've got all these mental advantages that just aren't in Manchester City's favor. And maybe that's the fault of Pep Guardiola and his management style. I don't know. And maybe it's a credit to Jurgen Klopp. But in terms of how much better are they? No, they're in the same stratosphere. Manchester City will win the Premier League within the next 2 years. And then you have Leicester City at 45 points, but are they ever going to win the Premier League again? I'm not sure that that's a realistic goal. Chelsea will probably get back up there, but Man United's done. They're cooked. I don't ever see Man United hopping back up there with the type of money Manchester City's throwing around. And Manchester United, yeah, they can claim they buy a bunch of players, but And then the league falls off. Sheffield United, Wolverhampton, they're not winning anything. Tottenham, we keep thinking but it's just, the gap is getting wider. Right? Tottenham is so much more worse than Manchester City than we were when they had Gareth Bale. And when the gap widens like that from the top of the league to the middle of the league, you lose the competitiveness. You lose the upsets. You lose the chance for other teams, maybe not even the middle of the table teams or bottom of the table teams. And you will never get as much parity as there is in American sports because you cannot put a salary cap on your own league because it will remove the competitiveness of them in the Champions League. It would have to be a UEFA agreement, and that's not going to happen because you'll have to get players' unions involved, and it's too complicated. It's international. There's different economies, tax brackets. All these things will make it extremely difficult to impossible for that to be executed for all the consistent Champions League teams, right? And that's never going to happen. Never going to happen. So I think that this is something that's just going to keep rolling. I wish there was a way to fix it. I wish there was a way to maybe put some more contract rules in for the individual leagues to where younger players have to stay longer or younger players or teams have a little more control over their players perhaps. Because it's just never going to be the NBA, NFL, but if they can get it to where it was in the mid-2000s, which I thought we had a lot of good balance. Teams were changing out championships. There was not 6-7 straight title runs like there is today. I think that would be probably best. But it's difficult. It'll never be the NBA. It'll never be the NFL. I mean, the NFL is the king of parity, and that's why they're the king of all sports leagues, in my opinion. I get the Premier League and then whatever. The NFL, for a sport that's only played and focused on in one country, it is massively popular. And it has the most watched television events of all time. Right? 9 of the top 10 most watched television events of all time are the Super Bowl. So it's something that they have it figured out, but there's no way for other leagues to replicate that type of parity that's seen in the National Football League. But parity is something that should be discussed in international club soccer because it is getting a little wide. It's getting a little uninteresting throughout the middle and bottom of the table, and it feels like we're just waiting for the Champions League every single year. But it is what it is. We'll take a break. On the other side of the break, more Chicharito rumors. This time, another Los Angeles superstar vouches for Chicharito's appearance at LA Galaxy. Will the move happen? We'll go back over, is it a good move for LA Galaxy and Chicharito on the other side of the break? You're listening to the GSMC Soccer Podcast.
Are you looking to get your college football fix? Looking to get the latest news on your favorite school's team? The GSMC College Football Podcast is your ticket to all things college football. Join us as we talk college football from the national championship, the college rivalries, the bowl game, to the Heisman Trophy. To which conference is the best? We've got you covered for the Big Ten, SEC, Big 12, the Pac-12, ACC, and everything in between. Download the GSMC College Football Podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Google Play, or anywhere you find podcasts. Just type GSMC in the search bar.
Welcome back into the GSMC Soccer Podcast. Just talked Neymar, PSG, potential contract extension, led into a conversation about the lack of parity within these leagues, specifically Bundesliga, specifically Serie A, specifically Ligue 1. There's no parity in those leagues whatsoever. And the Premier League is getting worse and worse to where teams like Chelsea and Manchester United and Tottenham and Arsenal, teams that normally you think are going to compete at the top of the table, get second, if things go right, win the league, along with Liverpool and Manchester City, it's starting to erode away, and it feels like a two-team race, and it feels like it might be this way for a long time with as young as Liverpool and Man City are in some spots, and as much money and power they have to throw around. So it's heading toward that monopoly phase, and that's not good for any of these leagues. It's good for the Champions League. More stars, bigger teams. Your round of 16 is going to be a amazing clash of star talent every single year. And that's why we get so excited here at the GSMC Soccer Podcast for the Champions League come mid-February. That's going to be just awesome to watch, awesome to talk about, to delve into each of those teams, to delve into the matchups, the Champions League. So much fun. So much fun. I cannot wait for the Champions League. Can't wait for the MLS season either. It starts at the beginning of March, and we have a Los Angeles superstar, one of the kings of Los Angeles, right? Magic Johnson is one of them, and Kobe Bryant is one of them. Kobe Bryant, we know he's a big soccer fan. He is a big fan of Chicharito as well, especially Chicharito heading to LA Galaxy. I believe LA Galaxy is the favorite team of Kobe Bryant. I think he stuck with Galaxy. I don't think he jumped over to LAFC where all the actors went like Will Ferrell. And, you know, I have to agree with Kobe Bryant. We talked about this on a previous show. It's not that Chicharito fits best strategically with LA Galaxy. I think he fits well. He's a veteran striker. He's going to be able to put the ball in the back of the net in the MLS. That's for certain. Not at the level that Zlatan Ibrahimovic did a year ago. Not at the level that Carlos Vela does. Not at the level that some other of the best strikers in the MLS do. But at a very good, above average, nearing great level of goal scoring from Chicharito. Add into the fact that it's a veteran presence on a team that you're trying to build some from the youth ranks and not throw as much money around and rely on international superstars. But you do need that veteran presence like Chicharito, that star that kind of drives you, the guy that's been there before. He's won some matches. He's appeared on the international level. He's dealt with fame to help some of the really good young prospects that LA Galaxy has cooking up. And it's great for LA Galaxy in terms of marketing because this is what LA Galaxy has now found itself in. It's found itself in a battle of Los Angeles, much like the Los Angeles Clippers and Lakers have found themselves in a bit of a battle of Los Angeles. In my opinion, that's a battle that the Clippers will never win. But this is certainly a battle that LA Galaxy, who has the most titles in MLS history, they've been the most consistent, the most dominant program and club in MLS history. They are, I'm sorry, they could lose their spot to LAFC. They're in serious trouble here. So LA Galaxy needs to reach into that Southern California, just base, which is there's a lot of Hispanics and Latinos in Southern California. They love soccer. A lot of them LA Galaxy fans, a lot of them LAFC fans too. But it's Chicharito, who is a Mexican legend and who draws fans wherever they go. Mexican soccer fans love Chicharito. Oh my gosh. And we've talked about this on previous shows. This guy is so overhyped, so over-talked about as if he's Messi, talked about as if he's the greatest striker in Mexican history. He is beloved. Chicharito is beloved. And maybe it's because he has a really cool name, both his real name and his nickname, Javier Hernandez. Great name. Smooth, right amount of syllables. Javier Hernandez. Easy to say, right? Easy to say from any accent. Beautiful name. And then his nickname, Chicharito. Even cooler. Chicharito. It's like got a dance to it. Chicharito. Easy to say as well, right? Guy who grew up in Ohio like me. Guy who grew up talking to people that say y'all and crick. I can say Chicharito. It's pretty easy, right? It helps connect to more than just, native Mexicans or native Spanish speakers, but those that grew up in the United States or those who would want to watch LA Galaxy but don't have any connection to the Mexican national team. I think it's a great move for the LA Galaxy from a public relations standpoint. And we forget this in sports a lot, how important public relations and selling tickets is, right? We forget this a lot. We don't understand really how important selling tickets, making money is to these teams. We forget that a lot of times. And when there's an opportunity to both help your team on the field and help your team in the seats, help your team in the PR battle, help your team in the TV ratings, you take that chance every single time, no matter what it costs. And there's very few opportunities where both those things can happen because of a connection to the fan base. You're seeing that in the NFL with the Cincinnati Bengals and the number 1 pick, Joe Burrow. He is from Southern Ohio. They have struggled, the Cincinnati Bengals, to put butts in the seats. He is also a great player. So now you have an opportunity to fulfill 2 needs at the same time. You do it every single time. It makes business sense. It makes football sense. And in the case for LA Galaxy, this makes soccer sense. And it makes business sense. And when those two things intermix, it's definitely a deal that needs done. It's definitely a deal that should be completed. It's a deal I hope LA Galaxy can move forward with and get done. They have pulled moves off like this before. Won't be too difficult for them to execute. Make sure you follow us on Twitter at GSMC_soccer. Give us a like on Facebook as well, GSMC Soccer. Also follow all the other GSMC podcasts. On the other side of the break, just came out that UEFA bent the rules just a little bit to make sure that Ronaldo made the team of the year that I talked about on the last program. Should they have done that, or should they have left it alone? I have an example for why that UEFA certainly should have done what they did with Cristiano Ronaldo. That's next. This is the GSMC Soccer Podcast.
Tired of searching the vast jungle of podcasts? Now listen close and hear this out. There's a podcast network that covers just about everything that you've been searching. The Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network is here. Nothing less than a podcast bliss with endless hours of podcast coverage. From news, sports, music, fashion, cooking, entertainment, fantasy, football, and so much more. So stop lurking around and go straight out to the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. Guaranteed to fill that podcast itch. Whatever it may be. Visit us at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and download us on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Play.
Big welcome back into the GSMC Soccer Podcast. Lukas Moore here. Follow us on Twitter at GSMC_soccer, Facebook GSMC Soccer as well. Just talk Chicharito and his potential to put butts in the seats for LA Galaxy, connecting to the high amount of Mexican national team fans that live in Southern California and the surrounding areas, and connect with them and get butts in the seats, as well as improving your soccer product after the loss of Zlatan Ibrahimovic. But where I wanted to go next was a little bit of a news broke that UEFA released their team of the year, and they released their fan vote, and they had a certain formation for that fan vote and guys at each position. And what they did to make sure that Cristiano Ronaldo, made the list and Conte fell off was they adjusted the formation so that Ronaldo was in a position where then he would beat this guy out, and then the other guy didn't get enough fan votes to get in, and therefore Ronaldo gets in and not the other guy. Basically, they made sure Ronaldo got on their list. And at first, it makes you cringe, right? Ooh, that doesn't sound good. You had one thing, you agreed on it, everybody voted on it, and then now all of a sudden you changing it just to get a guy in? Sounds like favoritism. Sounds like he doesn't belong on the list. And I understand all those points. But this is a fan vote. And the one thing we know about fans, look at NBA All-Star voting. Alex Caruso, who does not belong near the All-Star game, is fourth in guards in voting. Why? Because he's known he's in Los Angeles, right? And when those two things come together, then you're going to get more fan votes. And that's why fan voting for all-star teams is ridiculous. Fan voting for awards is ridiculous. I think only as a component should it count. I think your popularity should only count as a component to these votes. It should be your play on the field. That's what should determine these awards. And to me, that makes it okay that this happened. Makes it completely okay. Let me tell you a story. Let me give you an example, right? So this was a fan vote. And they could have left Cristiano Ronaldo on the list. And it would have been the biggest headline of the weekend. Cristiano Ronaldo left off the UEFA Team of the Year. Do they know what they're doing? Are they serious? Come on. Bad headlines. You don't want that. Then you'd have to talk about the fan vote and potentially getting rid of it. And the fans don't like that because they like their voice to count. It's a mess. Cristiano Ronaldo being on the list makes sense. I think he was certainly one of the best 11 players in the world this year, as he has been for the past decade or so. Those who argue against that with me, I just don't really have time for it. He's Cristiano Ronaldo. Still just as athletic. I mean, hey, he's just as great. He's just as great. I've watched him play. He's just as great. maybe he's a little older, maybe a touch slower, maybe. I don't know. But to me, he's just as great. So he should have been on the list. So we get out of the way that he should have been on the list. Now you include the fan vote. And the fans, listen, if they didn't want him on, that's fine. But you can't ruin your own award because the fans said one thing. And let me give you an example. So in southeastern Ohio, where I went to college, Ohio University, there was this show. It was called Gridiron Glory. Covered American football. And Joe Burrow played in southeastern Ohio. For those of you that don't know, Joe Burrow right now, most popular football player on the planet, won the Heisman Trophy, national championship, yada, yada. Won't dive into that. But he played high school football and dominated high school football the same way he just did college, where he got all the awards. And he won every other award in the state. He won Player of the Year of the state, won Best Quarterback in the state, won the Gatorade Player of the Year in the state. So very clearly was the best player in the state. And Gridiron Glory has this award called the Gridiron Glory Player of the Year. It's actually pretty well known in the region. And it's a college show decided by college producers. And they never named Joe Burrow Player of the Year. Why? Because they did a fan vote. You know who won it? Hunter Sexton. What did Hunter Sexton end up doing? He ended up pitching at Marshall and didn't make professional sports whatsoever. Joe Burrow is about to be the number one pick. And that is lived down today by Gridiron Glory. And it's written about in articles nationally. Oh, he was never Gridiron Glory Player of the Year. What a mistake. Oh, it's tough to live with, right? Tough to live with that type of mistake. You didn't name this guy Player of the Year. You didn't put Ronaldo on the Team of the Year. I don't think the Ronaldo Team of the Year snub would have been near the magnitude of what I just talked about from southeastern Ohio. But if I were Gridiron Glory, we rewind to that Joe Burrow thing. If it's an all fan vote, which they changed it now to reporter vote and fan vote, which makes more sense. But if it's all fan vote and I saw the fan vote come in and it wasn't the guy that definitely should win it, I would lie. I would say, hey, the fans actually voted for Joe Burrow. And who would be upset? Because he's the guy that deserves the award. Bottom line. And that's why I don't think fans should vote in these things, because I don't think I should have to lie about a fan vote to make sure the right guy wins the award. I just wish the fans would pay attention and actually vote for who deserves to win the award. But that's not how fans work. It's not how fans will ever work. And I understand that. So take the fan vote part of it out. I don't have a problem at all with what UEFA did, making sure Ronaldo got on the list. If some people have a problem with it, well, it's not their award. I think you can't really do anything about it. And it doesn't really matter, so you're going to get over it at the end of the day. But good on UEFA for avoiding what I would consider a major mistake and a bad headline. You just don't want those, especially with the Champions League around the corner. On the other side of the break, we've got a couple matches to preview. Manchester United, Liverpool, arguably the biggest match of the weekend, and Real Madrid, Sevilla. Well, we will dive into those two matches on the other side of the break. You're listening to the GSMC Soccer Podcast.
This is your ultimate stop for everything sports. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Should I say more? From the NFL, MLB, the NBA to MMA, it's all in here. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Listen now.
Big welcome back in. Liverpool, Manchester United is the big match this weekend. It's on Sunday, 10:30 a.m. Central Time, 11:30 for those of you on the East Coast. Do a little bit of math. 8:30 on the West Coast. Mountain Time, 9:30. I think we've covered the entire continental United States. Hopefully you know when the match is, but it's Sunday morning. And it's a big match. It's a big match. But before we dive into it, remind you again at GSMC_soccer, Twitter, GSMC Soccer on Facebook. So right now, when you look at the standings, this one doesn't really matter. If you go to 538, they have really cool ratings, right? Match rating in terms of how important this match is to the result of the league, and it is only a 61. And it's just not that important, right? And although these two teams are really good, 538 says, yeah, but the match doesn't really matter because Liverpool is so far out in front. Even if Manchester United were able to pull an upset, Liverpool would still be the odds-on heavy favorites to win the Premier League this year. So when a match doesn't really decide much, well, why is this one of the biggest matches of the weekend then, Lucas? Well, it's because it is the most compelling storyline in soccer right now if Liverpool can continue this undefeated season. They've got star power. They've got a really cool manager. They're in the biggest league in the world. They haven't lost. I mean, just unbelievable. They have not dropped a Premier League match in 51 straight, dating back to 2017. I mean, are you kidding me? That is one heck of a run for Liverpool right now. One heck of a run that they're on. They just refuse to be beaten. They refuse to be beaten by teams in the Premier League. And I want to see it continue against Manchester United. Manchester United right now sitting all the way in 5th at 34 points, a whole 27 points back of Liverpool at the top of the league. And Manchester United coming off a couple solid results, beating Wolverhampton in the FA Cup replay. And then they beat Norwich City 4-0 in their last Premier League match a week ago. So they look good. They look athletic. Defense actually held up. But guess where Norwich City is? Oh, wait, they're the worst team in the league. So nothing really to read in there. Their last match against a competitive opponent in league play was Arsenal. They lost 2-0. Didn't really look like they had their wits about them. Arsenal is middle of the table this year. It's not even a good loss for Manchester United. Meanwhile, Liverpool has 1. Yeah, you get it. 20 wins, 1 draw. It's pretty impressive from Liverpool, what they've done this year. So we head into this one. Marcus Rashford, listen to the press conference. I don't think Marcus Rashford is going to be able to play. And that's a big blow for Manchester United. In fact, maybe it works the same way that it did for Tottenham, where you're missing a strong attacking player, so you forget about trying to compete and you just muddy it up and try to get a result, try to get a point out of there. And maybe if you get lucky on a set piece, maybe if things go right in certain situations, you'll be able to, I don't know, win maybe, possibly. I just don't see it happening. I think that Liverpool thoroughly outmatches Manchester United. They're at home as well. Last time these two teams played, the beginning of the season in the first run through the schedule, that one was Manchester United at home at Old Trafford. And they drew. It's the only draw of the year for Liverpool. So you look at that result and you go, well, Manchester United has an opportunity. But I just don't see it happening. I just don't, even though they drew them earlier this year, I think Liverpool will almost take that as a spite and be like, we got to go out and beat this team. They drew us last time. And we're in a run here where Liverpool is not coming off of any tiring matches recently. They last played last week. Meanwhile, Manchester United had to play in the middle of the week. Even though you change your roster around, it's still tiring. Everybody's got to get ready for the game. You get a day of practice taken away from you. It's awkward in the middle of the schedule. Then they have to go to Anfield, which right now is the best home field in sports. Because of how good Liverpool is and how passionate those fans are. And I think Liverpool's going to win 2-0. And I don't think Manchester United will find any room to score. Defensively, they could really break down against Liverpool. There's a chance Man United concedes 3-4 goals in this one. But I think that they'll play with passion, and they'll play solid, and they're not an awful team, Manchester United. I think they'll hang around with Liverpool for a second, but I think Liverpool's going to win 2-0 in that one. I'd be surprised if Manchester United found a way to get a goal. It just doesn't feel like it's coming without a Marcus Rashford on the field. It doesn't feel good for Manchester United. I would have been more excited about this one had Rashford been available, but getting injured in an FA Cup replay, how fun, especially when you come in as a sub. Rough for Manchester United, but it is what it is. And hopefully Liverpool can continue their invincible season, because if they win this one, it really opens up for Liverpool. Let's go through this schedule for Liverpool, because if they are able to grab a win here against Manchester United, their schedule opens way up coming up in the Premier League. We start with the Manchester United match, obviously. Then next week, Wolverhampton. Win. Don't even think about it. Win. Then they play West Ham. On the road, I get it. Win. Then Southampton, win. Then they get Norwich, win. West Ham again, win. Then they play Watford, win. Bournemouth, win. Everton, win. Crystal Palace, win. And then they play Manchester City on April 4th. So if Liverpool can get over this one, it'll be the toughest match, and they'll probably have a lot of easy wins, a lot of walkthrough games. They're so good, they're going to destroy all these teams through February, through March. So you get 2 whole months, basically, of knowing that Liverpool's going to win if they're able to win this match against Manchester United. This feels like the last challenge until the April 4th match against Manchester City. And then after that, they get Chelsea on May 9th. So it might just be 2 more matches after this that could upset the invincible season, in my eyes, if you're Liverpool. But that remains to be seen. This weekend, 2-0, my prediction, Liverpool over Manchester United. We'll take a break. On the other side, we'll discuss Real Madrid-Sevilla, the other big match of the weekend. Real Madrid, things looking up. They won that Super Cup on Sunday, and they're ready to get started with the back half of the La Liga schedule. And I think Real Madrid, with the consistent manager Zinedine Zidane, he also had an interesting quote we'll dive into. I think it's looking good for them. But we'll dive into it other side of the break. You're listening to the GSMC Soccer Podcast.
Are you looking for help for your fantasy football team? Check out the GSMC Fantasy Football Podcast. Get today's best advice on who to start, who to sit, even who you should draft. From sleeper picks to red hot lineups, they got it all covered for you. That's GSMCpodcast.com/fantasy-football-podcast. We'll cover traditional leagues, dynasty, PPR, even IDP leagues. When you need fantasy help, there's just one show to hit up. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
GSMC Soccer Podcast. I'm your host, Lukas Moore. Real Madrid, Sevilla. We'll talk that next. What we talked on the other side of, what we talked before the break was Liverpool, Manchester United. 2-0 Liverpool, my prediction. I really don't think it'll be that interesting. But it's interesting because it's Liverpool, and I love watching them play. Real Madrid, Sevilla, though, that match tomorrow early in the morning, 10 a.m. for those of you on the East Coast. Real Madrid tied at the top of the league right now, 40 points even with Barcelona. Barcelona just fired their manager. They're in a little bit of turmoil. They lost in the semifinals of the Super Cup in Saudi Arabia. Meanwhile, Real Madrid won that tournament. And it feels like all the momentum is rolling for Real Madrid to be able to get this thing done. And I think they're the better team. I think they have the better manager. I think they're a little more stable right now. I think Real Madrid is going to pull out the La Liga this year. I hope they pull out the La Liga this year, because my prediction would be right. But if Barcelona pulls it off, then it'd be fun because that means Messi went on one heck of a run, right? I think Real Madrid playing the way they are is entertaining. I think Messi winning games would be awfully entertaining. I just feel like Real Madrid is the team that's going to take it this year. They feel like they're informed. It feels like things are going right for Real Madrid. Barcelona on the rocks. I think Real Madrid's going to take it, and don't be surprised if they beat Man City and they get a good draw in the quarterfinal of the Champions League, and all of a sudden they're sniffing the final again. All that is certainly in play for Real Madrid this year, and I think we're, because of Liverpool's success, kind of forgetting how dominant Real Madrid has been over the past 5-6 years, over this past decade. I think they're the best team of the decade. And it's with the way these leagues spread out. We talked about that earlier in the show. I just don't think that's going to go away for Real Madrid. We forget about them a little bit, but I think they're going to come storming through. And they will need to storm through if they want to get this win, because Sevilla right now at 35 points, hey, their fans, they're convinced they get a win here. They'll be right there with Barcelona, Real Madrid. They could be right there, just 2 points behind. They're at 35 right now, 4th place in the league. Good 4 points clear of the 5th place team, Sociedad. They are currently tied with Atletico Madrid, with Atletico ahead on goal differential. And Sevilla will be a challenge for Real Madrid. But this one is at the Bernabeu. Real Madrid at home. Last 5 matchups between these teams, Real Madrid has won the last 2. Sevilla took the 2 before, and Real Madrid took the 1 back in 2017. I just think Real Madrid and Sevilla, especially with it at the Bernabeu, Real Madrid is the better team. And I'm picking better teams this weekend because it doesn't feel like either Sevilla or Manchester United are primed for an upset in this type of situation. Because of where we are in the schedule, because of where these teams are in terms of health, Real Madrid and Liverpool specifically, because of the rhythm they're in, how their form is moving into these games, Real Madrid and Liverpool, I think, are going to win as favorites this weekend. Be awfully fun if Sevilla and Manchester United can make some noise, but Real Madrid and Liverpool are the winners to me this weekend. That will push Real Madrid up to first place, most likely in the league. Barcelona's match this weekend shouldn't be a challenge for them. I expect them to win. They're playing Getafe in the middle of the league. So I think Barcelona could win. But boy, if they fire their manager and they suffer a tough loss to Granada, not Getafe. Granada, who's in 10th place. Yeah, middle of the table team. If Barcelona suffers a loss here, and they've been in bad form, only one win in their last 5 matches, that's why they fired their manager. But if they fire their manager and then drop this one to a 10th place team in the league while Real Madrid beats Sevilla, takes a 3-point jump, you're going to feel real silly that you had to fire your manager to get to that point, right? Ernesto Valverde could have done the same thing. He could have lost to Granada and then be 3 points behind Real Madrid. And again, this is why I'm not in favor of firing. There's seasons, there's clubs and culture to build. These things are really important. And I think the best teams in the world have culture, have built, have stability. And I just wish that more teams would see that around international soccer. But Real Madrid, they're going to win this weekend. And it brings me to an interesting quote about, well, they're not going to win. I think they'll win. But it brings me to an interesting quote, right? Zinedine Zidane said, 2 losses for me. So if Real Madrid drops their match to Sevilla, then drops their next match. Zinedine Zidane, a guy who's won Champions League after Champions League after Champions League. He was a legend on the pitch and now as the manager on the sideline for Real Madrid and France and the rest of the world, right? One of the most legendary midfielders of all time. He says 2 defeats and I could get fired. And I think he believes that because of the state that international soccer is in. How on earth are you not allowed 2 defeats? This is another thing that's happened with the diversifying or the spread of the teams at the top of these leagues and the middle of these leagues. You can't fail at all, right? Because the teams at the top are so great that as soon as you fail a little as one of the teams at the top, you're out, you're fired, you're done. And if you're the team in the middle of the table and you can't get to the top soon enough, you're out, you're fired, you're done. Same thing happens in other sports. You get a dominant player, a dominant coach, they're in one division, and they just absolutely dominate. LeBron James, how many coaches he get fired in the East, right? Bill Belichick, how many coaches has he had fired in his division? Nick Saban, how many coaches get fired in the SEC because of his dominance? In baseball, right? How many coaches are going to rotate around the NL West while the Dodgers keep winning that division? It's because they're dominant. And the same thing happens in soccer, and Zinedine Zidane's point stands that 2 defeats and I'm out of here. To me, that's ridiculous. I don't think he deserves that. I just think that it's unwarranted pressure, and maybe it's pressure these clubs feel like is normal and it helps them succeed. But to me, it doesn't create good culture, and I think that Liverpool has embraced Jurgen Klopp and his philosophies, and to me, that's why they're so successful. They have a culture, they have an identity, they bought into their head coach, they're running the formation to perfection, they trust them. And at first, I was upset with the German international team for not firing Joachim Löw for missing the group stage for the first time since before World War II if you're Germany. I said, you're Germany, you don't miss the group stage, you got to fire him. I fed into that a little bit, but now I've sat back and I've thought about it. I think it's actually a good thing. I think Jogi Löw has proved he can win at the highest levels of international soccer. And I think that Germany giving him patience and trusting the culture they built and trusting the youth program that they've built will be a positive for Germany moving forward. I think we'll see that in the European competition this summer. On the other side of the break, we talked about that FIFA franchise that I started and talked about. We'll talk about that for about 10 minutes, and that'll wrap up our show today. Been a lot of fun, though. FIFA on the other side, just a little bit of fun, having a conversation of where my buddy Max and I are with our FIFA franchise, FC Cincinnati. trying to climb our way up with JT Rose. We'll update that on the other side of the break. But Real Madrid, to me, 3-2 win against Sevilla. I think Sevilla makes this one fun and interesting, but Real Madrid will be in control most of the match in my eyes. Let's go ahead and take a break. You're listening to the GSMC Soccer Podcast.
Are you looking for the very best NFL and college football podcast? Then check out the GSMC Football Podcast. Get the latest football news both on and off the field. From the NFL Draft to trades to the rumor mill to the NFL Combines. They got you covered. That's GSMCpodcast.com/football-podcast. Get updates on college rivalries, game day insights, and much, much more. It's football talk the way you want it. This show eats, sleeps, and breathes football. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
Welcome back into the GSMC Soccer Podcast. Follow us on Twitter at GSMC_soccer. Find us on Facebook, GSMC Soccer. Hit us up. Love to see it. Now, let's talk about that FIFA franchise, shall we? To update you, remember, it was JT Rose, kid from England, but also an American. Played in England in the lowest levels for Northampton. Moved to the United States, again. Coached in Cincinnati for the Cincinnati college team, the Bearcats, and was able to make 3 NCAA tournaments. A lot of success. Gets hired by FC Cincinnati. Again, this is all a video game, by the way. Don't read too much into it. Has a lot of success at Cincinnati Bearcats. Gets hired by FC Cincinnati. In our first year, we went all the way to the semifinals of the MLS. We finished as a 7th seed, barely sneaking into the playoffs, which for those of you that follow the MLS, FC Cincinnati was nowhere close to the 7th seed of the East, right? So we were playing last season, essentially. That's where you got to start in FIFA 20. So we played the last season out, and it actually ended up being the New England Revolution winning the MLS that year. We lost in the semifinals, tough match, 2-1. DC United defeated us. We had a win in the first round, though, a fun win, extra time win. And you win a match like that, you move on to the semifinals, you lose. It's a great first year for JT Rose. It's a great first year for FC Cincinnati. What do? We scout, we spend money, and we improved our roster at every single spot. We have Pedro De La Vega, very young player. He's our star on the right wing. We have Caseta in goal. Just a spattering of other young players. We've got some really elite youth level talent that are developing and will be in the squad quickly, probably within the next 1 to 2 years. We believe in what we're building at FC Cincinnati, Max and I. We believe 1,000% in what we're building. And we're not even looking. So a lot of times we look towards the next job. We look, how are we going to get in the Premier League? Because the goal of these things is to become the greatest manager of all time, right? In these FIFA franchises. And you have about 30 years to do it. I've never made it to the full 30-year mark. It usually slows down by then. But we're going to try to make it to the 30-year mark on this. We've got another Madden thing we're trying to make it to the 30-year mark on. We love video games. It's a lot of fun. It's a great way to tell the storylines of sports. But in terms of FC Cincinnati, we're not even going to focus on the Premier League right now. We just want to become the best team in the MLS every single year. We want to be winning championships nearly every single year. We want to get a reputation so high, and then we'll worry about maybe moving on to the Premier League. So this is a 3, 4, 5-year project at FC Cincinnati where we love that. We're committed to that. We're ready to commit to that. We're ready to really have some excellent youth players play for us, develop for us, send stars around the world, make a lot of money for FC Cincinnati. We're really focusing on it. We're starting the second season. Decent start to the year, 3 matches in, 4 points. Dropped the first match, drew, then won, so it looks like we're getting into form. Playing a 4-3-3 gegenpress. I want that Liverpool style. It's my favorite style of soccer because I think it encourages attacking play from the defenders. I think it challenges defenses. I think it is the most exciting way to play soccer is the 4-3-3. And it's what I'm most comfortable with playing the game FIFA. So that's what we're running. we're getting players that fit that style, and we'll carry that through. I think we're going to play that style, and no matter where we go to, we'll adjust the roster. We'll buy the necessary players to play that style. And yeah, it's going well. FC Cincinnati, flying. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. We'll keep you updated every other week about on where we are with that. Hopefully we keep advancing, keep playing. And when we get to a certain point, I'm actually going to reach out to you guys and ask you which Premier League job we should try to get and take when it gets to that point. That'll be down the road in the future. Just a little fun. I love talking about the FIFA franchise on some sort. It gets the storylines out, gets it out there, stays committed to it. Love talking about it. It was a lot of fun on the show today. We had a lot of fun topics. We had Real Madrid, Sevilla preview. We previewed Liverpool and Manchester United, the big matches from the weekend, a little MLS talk, Chicharito. We talked about the balance of international soccer, the balance of club soccer, and how it is in jeopardy, potentially, throughout the world. It's been a lot of fun. I'm Lukas Moore, your host. Thank you so much for listening. Please rate us, review us, subscribe to us on all your favorite podcasting platforms. Give us a follow, GSMC Soccer on Twitter, GSMC Soccer on Facebook. There's a little underscore there on Twitter. Make sure you remember the underscore on Twitter. And we will see you next time. Thank you so much for listening to the GSMC Soccer Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network, the collection of all the best podcasts you can find. We'll see you next time. This has been the GSMC Soccer Podcast.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Soccer Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. From movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.